change. Watch Asia Insight on NHK World Japan.
Watch NHK World Japan now over the air and on Comcast and Verizon.
University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science, leading the way on Chesapeake Bay restoration, while guiding our state, nation, and world toward a more sustainable future.
Montgomery County Public Schools used their Data Center Energy Efficiency Grant to upgrade and save over 180,000 kilowatt hours, which equals a savings of over $21,000 annually. Learn more online at energy.maryland.gov.
Are you a Maryland renter at risk of being evicted due to COVID-19 related issues? Help is on the way with Maryland's Emergency Rental Assistance Program. You may be eligible for assistance in helping to pay current or past due rent and avoid the threat of eviction because of wage loss or illness due to the pandemic. To learn more, visit rentrelief.maryland.gov or call 877-546-5595.
State Circle is made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you.
Connecting Marylanders to their government. This is State Circle.
Good evening. Welcome to State Circle. We begin tonight with a growing list of candidates to be Maryland's next governor. The Democratic field expanding this week with former Democratic National Committee Chair Tom Perez announcing his candidacy. He joins Comptroller Peter Franchot, author Wes Moore, former Attorney General Doug Gansler, Rashern Baker, the former Prince George's County executive, and former U.S. Education Secretary John King. Joining us for the Political Roundtable this week, Melissa Deckman, chair of the Political Science Department at Washington College, and Todd Eberly, professor of political science at St. Mary's College of Maryland. Great to have you back. Thanks for joining us. The Democratic field for governor has enlarged a lot over the last couple of months. When you look at this field, what stands out for you?
Well, I mean, I think first and foremost, what stands out to me is that it is all male. In a state that is considered to be a rather progressive state, it has no women in its congressional delegation, no women in statewide elective office, and we have nearly a dozen declared candidates, and they're all men. There's still a year to go, more time for people to get in, but that really just stands out to me.
Melissa, I know that's an area of interest for you. I was going to say when using the cliche that people were tossing their hats in the ring, all these hats are men's hats.
Yeah, it's really disappointing. Maryland, of course, being a very democratic state, you'd hope you'd see more women sort of come to the front and be willing to run for office. There are some, I think, powerful women in the state of Maryland in elected office. But someone like Adrienne Jones, who's now the House Speaker in the Maryland General Assembly, arguably is one of the most powerful Democratic politicians in the state. So I think she probably decided that her talents were best situated for the House. And there were definitely, I think, some really good legislation that was passed by Democrats this session. At least progressive Democrats were pretty happy with how the session turned out. Another rising star, I think, in the Democratic Party is Brooke Learman. She's decided to run for comptroller, and I think she's got a pretty good chance of winning that race, although I think it will be somewhat competitive this year because Barry Glassman is a good challenger on the Republican side. But yeah, I mean, I look at the list of candidates running for office, and there are some who are, I think, probably pretty well known in the state, someone like a Peter Franchot. But generally speaking, I'm pretty disappointed not to see more women running for office here for governor.
Todd, would you list Franchot as the front runner at this point? He's raised a bunch of money and has won statewide repeatedly.
Yeah, I would. He's got that advantage in that he's run statewide. As comptroller, he has covered the every square mile of Maryland, making sure that he's raised his name recognition. He's got support from the middle, which oftentimes proves to be crucial in Maryland. And if you've got, say, 10 people running and you've got a name advantage, it doesn't take much to be the one who comes out on top.
Yeah, what are the dynamics when you have a gigantic field like this? I mean, I guess it matters if you have a base, if you have a strong base somewhere. Think about Return Baker in Prince George's County. If you have a particular niche, if maybe you have, you know, star power, which Wes Moore may turn out to have, what works?
I think the one candidate I'm most interested to see on the trail will be someone like Wes Moore, who has national name recognition. I think he's raised quite a bit of money. He has a really compelling backstory. But at the same time, if you look at the last election cycle, his narrative is somewhat close to someone like a Ben Jealous, who doesn't have any elected office experience. And so I think that's what primary voters in Maryland are going to have to weigh. Do they want someone potentially who has national appeal, who's dynamic, exciting? I think Wes Moore hits all those boxes. At the same time, I think someone like Peter Franchot is probably much more of the centrist lane. And if Democrats don't want to lose to the Republican candidate again, it's sort of analogous to the situation nationally with Joe Biden, right? Where moderates ended up carrying the day because in part, there were too many progressives, I think, in the Democratic presidential primary. So that's really what I'm going to be looking at here. I don't think candidates like Doug Gansler or Return Baker really, they run before and they haven't really been that successful. So I'd be very surprised to see if they actually ended up becoming the nominee this year.
Todd, you mentioned Franchot maybe being in a moderate lane, which isn't where he started, but maybe where he is at the moment in a Democratic primary. Unions have traditionally played a huge role in Democratic primaries in Maryland. Maybe their power is reduced a bit, but to the extent that he's not totally in line or hasn't been with the state Democratic Party, is that a big deal?
Well, I mean, it certainly can be, but to build on what Melissa was saying, if Democrats look to the example of 4 years ago, the unions really did get one of their top picks in Ben Jealous, and it did not turn out well. But that's not to say that Peter Franchot does not have friends in labor. In fact, he does have quite a few. So I don't think it's clear that there would be any pushback against him just because he's in that moderate lane.
The Republican side, the leading candidate is a woman, Kelly Schultz, the Commerce Secretary. The path appears to have been cleared. She seems to be the Team Hogan candidate. What would need to happen for Republicans to win the governor's mansion again? I mean, they've won in the bluest of blue states. Nobody has more registered Democrats than Maryland does. Republicans have won 3 of the last 5 governor's races. What's the path for Kelly Schultz?
I think Kelly Schultz actually is a pretty formidable candidate. She's very much in that Larry Hogan mold. It's clear from her website, from her materials, she is linking her success to being part of that very popular Hogan administration. Of course, the question is, do the coattails of Hogan actually apply to someone who's been in his administration? Hogan seems to be this very unique figure who is popular in the state, who's moderate. I think if she follows that playbook, doesn't talk about more culture war issues, which Hogan has studiously avoided, and really sticks to the economy and really touts the success of the Hogan administration in terms of handling the pandemic, I think she's got a decent shot. As Todd noted earlier, though, this is a state that is heavily Democratic in terms of its voter registration. So it's going to be difficult, I think, for any Republican to succeed in that environment.
And Todd, before you jump in on this, just to set up further, a mid-year election, traditionally the party that's in power in Washington has a little bit of an uphill climb. There's a tailwind for the party that's out of power, but the Republicans nationally are split at the moment, and Joe Biden is polling well. There was, you may not have seen it, state Democrats put out what I think is their first anti-Kelly Schultz press release this week, trying to get her to repudiate Trump. I don't know that that's necessarily a sign of fear, maybe just not having much to do.
Well, I mean, Trump is a powerful motivator for Democrats in Maryland. Even though Larry Hogan was easily reelected, down ballot was really brutal for Republicans in the prior election cycle because of that backlash against Donald Trump. So, of course, they're going to link her to Republicans and Republicanism. But it is a midterm election. That midterm election, typically, you're right, goes against the party that's in power. That happens even in Maryland, but it's a real heavy lift to have a wave big enough to overcome the Democratic registration advantage, especially coming off of 2 terms of a Republican in a state that hadn't re-elected a Republican since the 50s.
I should note there are other Democrats running. John Barron, nonprofit executive, Ashwani Jain, who served in the Obama administration, and Michael Rosenbaum, an entrepreneur. There may be more of the filing deadline, even though the primary is a year away, the filing deadline not till next February. I did want to talk to you about this experiment in ranked choice voting that we just saw in the New York City primary for mayor. It was a similar situation where you had a ton of Democrats running, maybe a group of 3 or 4 at the top of the list. Explain how this works in a way that I can understand, if you can.
I'm happy to take a first stab at it. We don't have ranked choice voting here in Maryland. I don't think, do any localities have it, Todd? Maybe
I'm not aware of.
I'm not aware either. So essentially the way that ranked choice voting works is that you go into the ballot box and you have your ballot and you put someone as your first choice, your second choice, your third choice. And the idea is that unless someone gets a majority at the beginning, 50% plus 1, essentially, if there's no clear winner, the lowest performer on the ballot, their vote gets tossed, but that person who voted for him or her, their votes for the second place finisher are then reallocated. So the idea here is that with ranked choice voting is that one, you will have a more positive campaign, right? So if you're in a field of 5, 6, 7 individuals, you realize you're not just getting your supporters, you're getting actually all the voters because you want those other voters to put you in second place, essentially. And so one argument is that these types of elections allow for a more positive campaign overall. And the second benefit of such a procedure in terms of voting is that essentially, you don't throw away a vote. Like a lot of people say, well, I'm not going to go out and vote this election cycle because my candidate, the person that I really support, really doesn't have a good shot of winning. And so you're actually potentially boosting the number of people that go out to vote in these sorts of elections. So the idea is that you're not wasting a vote. You're essentially voting your conscience, but you're also being allowed to participate in deciding who the overall consensus candidate would be.
Downsides are maybe not everybody understands it. That was a great explanation. It's still a little bit confusing for people, and it takes a while before you know if it's close at all, like New York City was. It's going to be a while till you know who the winner is.
Sure. I mean, if you've got mostly electronic voting, it can happen more quickly. But when you have a large degree of absentee, that's going to cause some delays. New York has seen, I think it was decade high turnout for this primary, which means people were not put off by it. But there are problems, things like what we call ballot exhaustion. You could have people who choose not to pick a second, third, or fourth choice. It's also possible, because usually you're limited to how many candidates you can pick, that someone can have all of their choices eliminated. And then the person who winds up winning, you've actually won with fewer ballots than were cast. So, I mean, no voting system is perfect. This is just the one that seems to have caught people's attention right now.
And it is used in other countries. I would add that, right? So in Australia, New Zealand, there are other areas of the world that use that. I think it tends to be more pervasive, though, in election systems that have multiple parties. It's a kind of a way to balance out the distribution that way a little more fairly. So in the US context, it's been interesting to watch, though.
Melissa Deckman, Todd Eberly, thank you both. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Our newsmaker this week is Lisa Hamilton, CEO of the Annie E. Casey Foundation, which has released its annual Kids Count data book. Ms. Hamilton, great to have you back on MPT.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start, if you will, with a word on the foundation and its mission and the purpose of this research report.
Sure. The Annie E. Casey Foundation is based in Baltimore, and we are focused on creating a brighter future for all kids in the country. And to do that, we focus on 3 key things: making sure that kids grow up in strong families, that their parents have the financial resources to take care of them, and that those families can live in safe, healthy communities that help them thrive. For more than 32 years, the foundation has released a report called Kids Count, and our report has just come out for 2021. And the report looks at 16 indicators to help us understand how children are doing in this country around 4 key areas: their economic well-being, education, their health, and the strength of the families and communities that they're growing up in. So we hope that this data provides a way for lawmakers and community leaders to understand the kinds of investments they need to make to help our kids grow up healthy and strong.
Your report ranks states across the country in terms of kids' well-being. Maryland comes in 24th, so positive spin on that. We can say we're above average, but really not by much. What stands out for you in this year's report?
Well, on the 16 indicators, Maryland was going in the right direction in 10 out of 16. I'll note that the data in this year's data book is from 2019. It's the most recently available data. So it gives us a sense of how kids and families were doing immediately before the pandemic. What's concerning in Maryland, I think, is that 3 out of 4 of the education indicators weren't going in the right direction over the last decade. And so that means we don't have as many kids in preschool as we need. Our 3rd graders aren't reading proficiently. Our 8th graders aren't as proficient in math as they need to be. So that's information that folks in Maryland can use to really focus our attention on the areas where kids need help the most.
You know, one number I flagged in the report was surprising to me and is frankly distressing. It's 65% of 4th graders not proficient in reading, roughly the same in Maryland as it is nationally. And we take some pride in Maryland on our education system. So that one is a bit of a surprise.
Well, as you noted, it's a national challenge for us to get kids reading proficiently by the 3rd grade. What research tells us is that if kids aren't reading on grade level by the 4th grade, it's more likely that they're not going to finish high school. And so that's why we identify that as an indicator to measure quite closely, because up until that point, children are learning to read. Beyond that, they read to learn. So we want to make sure that we continue to pay attention to that key metric.
You noted that the data are all pre-pandemic, 2019, when the economy was in relatively good shape. Sort of the headline number, the percentage of kids who were growing up in poverty, 10 years ago, it was 22% nationally. 2019, that fell to 17%. A lot of kids. Maryland, 2019 was at 12%. So compares very favorably. But that's still 1 in 8 kids growing up in poverty.
You're absolutely right. That is one of the most important data points that we ought to follow, is the number of kids that are growing up in poverty, because we know how much that threatens their development and their educational prospects. So we certainly want to do everything we can to reduce that number. You know, we looked at data that the Census Bureau gathered during the pandemic to see how families have been faring. And while you note things have been going somewhat in the right direction around that issue, many millions of families reported much greater financial instability during the pandemic. They reported being very worried about being able to make their next rent or mortgage payment. Many are struggling with hunger. Many are worried about mental health concerns for them and for their children. And so we are very concerned that the pandemic is going to erase nearly a decade of progress that we've been making on these issues. One thing I'll note is that as it concerns kids in poverty, you know, the American Rescue Plan has been working at the federal level to try to provide more resources to kids and families during this time. And one of the most important provisions of that piece of legislation is an expansion of the child tax credit. This is going to provide additional resources of up to $300 per month to families with children to help them meet their basic needs. This is really a game changer for kids and families. It's going to lift more than 4 million children over the poverty line. What concerns us, though, is that the child tax credit was only expanded for 1 year. And as I said, it has taken more than a decade for us to get families to recover from the Great Recession. And so we're hoping that Congress will make this child tax credit expansion permanent, because it's really going to be important to help families get back on their feet, to keep food on the table and keep the lights on.
Also important to note that for most families with kids, they're going to get this and they're going to get it automatically. But there are people who are going to fall through the cracks on that for various reasons and may need a little help in connecting with this resource.
Yes, the government has created a website, childtaxcredit.gov. Any families can visit if they want to understand their eligibility and how to access these payments. It might not seem like a lot, but up to $300 for a low-income family can be critical for them to meet their basic needs. So we encourage families to visit that website to learn more about how to access these payments.
There's another number in your report that caught my eye, the percentage of low birth weight babies. This has been relatively steady over time. It's 8.8% in Maryland, a little bit higher than nationally. A lot going on that issue involving how effective NICU units are and so forth. But it's also an area where there are particularly large racial and ethnic disparities.
Yes, we do worry about low birth weight babies because there could be developmental delays that happen as a result. The biggest factor that we need to pay attention to is the insurance, the numbers of families that are covered by health insurance, because that means they're going to get good prenatal care and can reduce the likelihood of an early delivery. So we want to make sure that more families have health insurance coverage. Unfortunately, that number went down for the first time in recent years. So for states that haven't expanded Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act, that's an important way to make sure that families have coverage, and that's going to help us turn those numbers in the right direction.
With the Annie E. Casey Foundation's background in the UPS fortune, your personal background having worked at UPS, you're all about data, tracking things, measuring things. Why is that so important?
Well, we need good information so that our policymakers can make good decisions. And so the foundation has been committed through its whole history in making sure we provide our community leaders with good information from which they can make decisions. And we hope that this information in this current data book helps policymakers understand how families were doing before the pandemic, the ways we made smart decisions to help them recover from the Great Recession, and can continue that good work to ensure our families recover from the pandemic. America can't recover if our families don't recover. So there's really no more important issue for us to take up at this moment.
For people who don't know about the foundation, it's huge. You've got billions of dollars in assets, the ability to spend roughly $170 million a year. With the emphasis on data tracking, how do you decide on projects, decide how you can best help, and then track the results?
Well, we use that data to help us understand areas where public systems might be struggling and provide technical assistance to help them improve. We identify community partners that are working on the most important issues for kids and families, and try to bring together all parts of our community, business, nonprofits, and government, to really focus on how to do cross-sector problem solving. The data really does help us know where to focus and then how to measure our progress over time. We do make progress in lots of areas, as the data this year tells us. Nationally, we made progress in 11 out of 16 of those indicators. Good things can happen when we really focus on the areas that need help most, and that is always a great way for us to guide our investment decisions and our policymakers as well.
Lisa Hamilton, CEO of the Baltimore-based Annie E. Casey Foundation. Nice to see you again. Thanks for the time.
Thank you for having me.
Now in our monthly Salute to Veterans, we meet a retired veteran from Clinton, Maryland, who is giving back to military widows, among other women. Nancy Yamada reports.
Every time you think that you can't do it, think of all the naysayers and prove them wrong.
Powerful words of advice from Parthenia Warford, a 20-year Army veteran who had a tough start in life when she became pregnant at 17 years old.
A junior in high school, and I was told I would never be anything and nobody would ever want me if I had my daughter.
As a single mom of one girl and then another, Parthenia defied all odds.
I mean, I went and got an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree. Now I have 2 masters and a grad certificate. And here I am still sitting thinking about doing a PhD.
The now retired U.S. Army soldier and Clinton resident has spent the last decade giving back and helping military widows and single mothers through her nonprofit, the Warford Foundation.
Once the soldiers have passed away, just like with us retirees, the system kind of fails us. And so I want them to know that they're still loved.
Her goal, to get them to believe in themselves and do everything in her power to get them on a track to emotional health and financial security.
For example, there was a shortage in nursing. Department of Labor showed that there was a shortage in nursing, and that was the quickest way to get a degree, a skill set, and also fill a vacancy that is really needed, which is nurses. And where they can come out and make $60,000 a year.
She also helps these single and widowed moms afford books for school. Over the years, she's held coat drives, back-to-school supply drives, donated countless Thanksgiving dinners, and adopted classrooms in D.C. And her mentorship program, Beauty Brains Belief, is all about connecting women of all ages.
Mentors are people that pour into you because they see something in you and they want to help you become something better.
Remarkably, Parthenia is a one-woman show and funds the Warford Foundation with her own money. She says it's an integral part of her own healing.
I really believe in giving back, and that's one way that helps me deal with my chronic pain, my chronic diseases that I have, my PTSD, my depression. So that's my way of healing me. So each day I wake up and see how I can help somebody every day. I want people to know that if I can do it, you can do it. I mean, it's just, I want to inspire people.
I'm Nancy Yamada for State Circle.
Thanks, Nancy, and thank you for watching State Circle. Have a good night.
This program was made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities.
Isn't it about time you got back to new horizons? To quiet alpine forests and breathtaking points of view? Get back to the trails. Get back to Mountain Maryland. Learn more at mdmountainside.com.
CCBC Continuing Education, covering the workforce. We give you the foundation to start a career in over 100 areas of